And we are back with Record Live again. Zanita, as always, it is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And we're here with Jared Madden. So sorry, Zanita, it's a bit of a Jared sandwich today. We do differentiate the spelling.
Didn't
But
even
Jared and I have
realize.
worked. Jared and I have worked together for a little while and refer to ourselves as Jared Squared in the collective. So it's good to have you on, Jared, as well.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
So Jared is currently working with us at Adventist Media as the marketing and digital director of that department, the manager of that department. And so, but also has a history in your life, Jared. You've worked with a lot of technology, emerging technologies, new technologies. And so we've got a digital discipleship conference coming up, which is exciting. They are always good value in my experience. We've had this sort of history of digital discipleship goes back a few years now in the South Pacific, and they've been very practical. I've found them great networking events to learn, to meet more people, like-minded people who are passionate about seeing the church be in digital spaces, people sharing their faith as individuals in digital spaces and using technology wisely. So we called today's episode Scroll, Click, Pray, Exploring Faith in a Digital Age. And I think no one would disagree that we are living in a digital age. From the time I was a kid to today, things have changed exponentially. Like, we didn't even have smartphones. When I was born, we didn't probably even have the internet. It might have existed, but it wasn't readily accessible. It wasn't in every home, and that sort of thing. So we have witnessed in the past few years some giant changes, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb here to say that the church has sometimes struggled to keep up with some of those technological changes, and that it's probably too simplistic to say that all technology is evil or to say that all technology is good even, or that all technology is neutral. I think some is good, some is bad, some is neutral, and some requires nuance. And so I think that's where we're gonna talk some of the topics we're going to cover today. But Jared, tell us a little bit about your experience with technology. Like, where did you first get interested in or get involved with this sort of space, this digital age? When did it dawn for you?
Yeah, I'm probably considerably older than you, so I may have started pre-technology with some of these areas. So my introduction into technology is I got a traineeship as a graphic designer for a printing company. And the reason that's my background, I'm a graphic designer by trade. And the reason I got the job was because of the transition that was happening in printing from an analog system into the digital system. And they hired me because I knew computers really well, and they wanted me in the company to start their transition. And so I entered this really great phase where I actually learnt the traditional ways of doing printing, and then saw how that transitioned into digital, and how even, the analog terms and ways of doing things morphed themselves into the digital space. So that was my, I guess, origin story. Fast forward a few like a decade, in the early 2000s. I was very, very involved in what was termed at the time new media. It wasn't even called social media at the time.
Mhm.
So I was consulting companies in this new thing that they didn't understand, and consulting them in, how this was going to change the way they would engage with their clientele, with their staff, how they did business. This was all pre-YouTube, pre-Facebook, etc. And I guess one of my claim to fames is that I launched Australia's first conference on podcasting in the early 2000s. Happened in Perth, and we got together a big group of people and started that conversation of podcasting. And here we are, 20 years later, podcasting, because it's, this is a really great way to connect, reach an audience, and to have conversations with people.
I love that you've started with a positive, because I feel like social media can be pretty all-consuming, and I think there's a lot of information and data out there at the moment, or maybe it's come out more so in the last year, that's like exposing and pointing out like the negative realities of it. And I get that, but I guess evidently I'm seeing a lot of people set like stronger boundaries and kind of like delete their accounts and just try get off it, basically, because they're realizing the dangers. But at the same time, when I feel that struggle of like feeling the pull, but also feeling like it's a positive thing, because I can see in my own journey that there are people online and there are like influencers, I guess you could say, or just individuals who have really influenced my faith and who have really made me think deeper about things. And I don't know where I would be in some areas of my life if I didn't have those like individuals speak about certain topics. And so while I struggle with it, I also am really grateful for it. And I think that it's not going anywhere. It's one of those things that is going to be around probably forever now. And so I guess, can you just speak about more of the positives? I'm sure we'll get into some of the other negatives and struggles with it later on in this conversation, but what are some of the other awesome things that you've seen come about because of the online world?
Yeah, I think an interesting conversation has happened in Australia with the recent bill looking at raising the age of, children's accessibility to social media to 16. And as I went around different communities of people, in their early 20s, teenagers, an interesting insight, which is a positive, I believe, for social media, digital connections, was the ongoing narrative of these digital technologies enabled me to find my tribe. I would not have found my people who, support me, who have similar interests to me, if it wasn't for these technologies. And that is good. And it can be negative if you find the wrong tribe. But I think that, the ability to find like-minded people, to have great dialogue, to build community, and accessibility. Again, a lot of these things, accessibility of information is one of those double-edged swords again. And, we have a access now to a wealth of information. And with AI, we now have access to a tool that helps us filter and navigate that information at a way we've never been able to do it before. So positively, it has enabled an enormous amount of people to find other people, knowledge, expansion, etc. Even down to mundane things like, I'll give you an example, e-health technology. My daughter, we probably wouldn't have found some of her resolutions with health if it wasn't for the digital health systems logging her data, and this doctor looking at it and that doctor looking at it. So the ability for different people to collaborate through digital platforms is great.
Talking about AI for a moment, it's sort of taken everyone by storm in the last couple of years. How do you see the interaction between God, the individual, and the AI technology? Because there's debate about, I'm a writer by craft, and so if I use AI to write my article, is that leaving less room for the Holy Spirit? If I prepare a sermon or a devotional using AI, does that what are some of the problems or positives you could see in that? Like, would God want us to use AI or not? Maybe you can't answer that question directly, but I guess these are some of the things we have to think about when we're looking at new technologies entering the scene. Like, how do we ethically use these technologies, and what do we do as Christians with the technologies that the world is embracing around us?
Yeah, AI is a huge leap forward. It's like AI is going to change our lives dramatically. And if people don't realize that yet, they will see it happen within the next couple of years. I predict that in 2 years' time, we'll see quite a different world. When it comes to all sorts of things from how we learn, education, it will even impact jobs. And we may even see a lot of jobs that are multi-year, 5-year degrees becoming more like trades because AI changes the way that job actually functions. The way I best, I guess, describe how I see AI, it's like, go back quite a few years, we had this idea of how microorganisms worked. And then we invented the microscope and we could see it. And to me, that's kind of like AI. We've got all this information out there, but now we've invented this tool that looks at information in a different way. And how we conceive of and perceive and engage with the concepts of the micro before the microscope is very different to after the microscope. And that's how I see it working here. The way that we look at data, etc., is going to change, and how we the good and the bad part, to come back to your point, Jared, you're a writer, is how we use it. So I'll give you an example of how I use it when I'm writing. Is I will just let my mind go and write and write and write, and then say, get AI to analyze that and to bring that information back in a coherent matter. And then I will reread my own thoughts, and it's collated it together in a nice coherent way. And then that enables me to go into a second phase of my thinking a lot quicker than if I was to actually try and articulate it very well at first. So in that way, AI can be used as a tool which helps me understand what I'm thinking better, and help drive me to where I want to go in a more efficient way. Where AI is dangerous, if I can go to the flip side, specifically in things like writing and looking at spiritual concepts, is mistaking AI to be correct, because often it is not. And if we're asking AI for answers, then inevitably in its current form, you will get taken down the wrong path. So AI is inherently somewhere between 60 to 80% incorrect. Sorry, around 60% correct. So it's around 20 to 40% incorrect at the moment. And sometimes it's just blatantly wrong. And it will make things up to satisfy the need that you asked it to do. So asking AI for answers, I think, is the wrong way to approach that technology. But asking it to bring information to it and ask it to investigate that information in ways that are time saving is a great use of AI.
I heard there was a law court recently of someone who used AI and got information for a client and got sued because they hadn't checked. So it's good for people to know it's very inaccurate a lot of times. But I think it's also good to know that it's a tool and not just like a robot that's going to take over our lives. But I guess I just want to touch on something that I've been to digital discipleship the last few years. And one thing that I've really liked about it is that it has opened my mind to like more creative ways to engaging online. So I think a lot of people think when we're talking about faith and social media, they just think they have to go on and like share a lot of theological thoughts or have to share their testimony. But there's some really creative things that people have gotten up a digital discipleship and shared. And this one in particular isn't, but this is something I've noticed since is there's someone that I follow is this guy who he calls himself like Piano and Prayer, and every week he gets online and he plays the piano for 10 minutes and he just tells people to write their prayer requests in the comments, and he gets like hundreds of people just as he's playing the piano write their prayer requests in, and then after he's finished playing he just like prays for them. And it's something that's like so simple, like he's not saying anything like he's not having to get really personal, he's not having to share some deep like theological thought, he's just playing the piano and praying. And so I think, yeah, just give us maybe some things either from digital discipleship or something else that you've seen people show up in a way that's like different, that has been really like compelling, or that has really like encouraged people.
Yeah, I think the mistake a lot of people have when it comes to using digital to connect to people or to share faith is to present your theological position. This is what I believe is right. That can create debate, but I think the ways that people are cutting through and are actually really genuinely connecting with people is in very human ways that build relationship. And theology is only part of who we are as humans. We're relationships, we're health, we're our connection to nature or the built environment, and having those human moments like music and prayer is a really great way to connect. We're entering a time. This is going to be a really interesting time, because if I can predict one thing that AI is going to do, is it's going to generate a lot more noise. And it's going to generate a lot more information. And so I've been researching for the talk that I'll be doing at Digital Discipleship about what is the one thing that to move forward with how do we connect with people in an AI generated world, basically. And so I'm bringing some spiritual biblical aspects to that, and I'll be presenting to that on the Friday night of the conference. But at the end of the day, authentic connections with people in authentic ways are going to cut through. Examples of that, I think your example is brilliant. I think you look at someone like Sandra Entman, who each Friday night gets online and sings and connects to people in a way that I can't do, because that's not something I can do, get online and sing. Yeah, I think moving forward also, we're going to be finding that the way that we do evangelism will change. And I think what Sandra does is evangelism, and it's what I would call, she's building a micro community. So, finding that niche thing that is important to you as a human and connecting to other people through that and building a relationship through digital technologies. I absolutely love the quote by Ellen White, which talks about Jesus' method alone works, and this is so important for digital discipleship. Is he dwelt with people as one who wanted their good, and he ministered to their needs, and he gained their trust. And that to me is the playbook for if you want to share your faith, is you're in the places where people are digitally, minister to their needs and gain their trust. And that is 90% of it.
We've, I guess, reflected a little bit on what an individual maybe might do engaging in their own life, using ChatGPT or AI. Or what about a local church? What would you say should be the kind of digital, maybe not the whole strategy for a local church, but what would be the philosophy that a local church should adopt? Many of the people that will watch or listen to this will be part of local congregations. Their churches might be a bit behind on some of this stuff. They might not have a social media presence, and that might be the simplest thing. But is it just about, often when churches say they're trying to modernize or they're trying to get up with technology, they start a live stream, right?
Yeah.
So all they're doing is, hey, we're broadcasting our sermons to the world. What do you think is the first thing a local church should think about in terms of some of this stuff? What can they offer in the technology or digital space?
Yeah, I think first of all they need to have a look at themselves and ask the question: Are we going to build a micro community and go wide? Global, Australia, and actually build have a look at our membership and say, what skills, what can we provide to people and actually build there and go wide, or do we actually use technology to engage our local community to bring people in? So, for instance, it is technology, it is digital. A lot of people probably won't think about it, but there are a lot of people probably in your community, specifically if you've got retirement age, who would be hard of hearing. So, you work with someone like Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired, and they can help your church bring digital equipment in so that the local community can come to your location and hear what's going on. That's a very practical application. Not only can that help when people come, Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired can actually market to your community and go, hey, there's a location that actually serves your needs because they've put this digital equipment in. So, that's a practical application. But once again, I think the core of any ministry is authenticity, and you need to find what is your authentic voice, what is your authentic message within your congregation, and build around that. I know of a church who, again, this is technology, who actually has a ministry where they build drones and engage with drone racing with the local youth, and that's one aspect of digital. And then you've got other people who do really well with the live streaming, music online, etc.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that people can do in their community, and sometimes that looks like flying drones and commuting them. I think it's interesting as well, speaking about the church, like statistically, we know in the church that the people who leave the church, the biggest age group of people is from like 18 to 35. So it's your young people. But I think it's kind of interesting because the younger you are, typically the more, I could be wrong in this, but typically the more open you are to things. Like people are often like more fluid and are still making up their minds about things and thinking about things when they're in that age. And if you look at people who are online the most, it's that age group as well. So it's like, it's the 18 to 35s who are really in that generation who are like addicted and who are very open. And like, yeah, it's not really a question. It's just a comment about like, it's the same age that's missing, but it's also the same age that's seeking the most online.
Well, just on that, I actually think that the Adventist Church has something to really give the increasingly digitally saturated world, with all the noise that's going to amplify year on year. And there's a new discipline coming out, which interestingly is called digital psychology. And as the younger generations who are digitally native are growing up, they have a different skill set. They have different things that they are good at and not good at as those who were not grown up with digital technology. And an area where they're actually not good at is unplugging, resting, and actually, reassessing, ideas outside of the matrix, if I can put it that way. And, one of the things I think we need to have a debate about as an organization is we love our technology. We love developing technology. And I'm sitting with my team and going, hey, let's make this app to really make the church service interactive, and people can do this and that in the church. And then there's another part of me that goes, well, hang on, that maybe the Sabbath is actually about disconnecting and being with people and touching a paper Bible and leafing through that and having that tactile experience, which is closer to nature, and actually talking to real people around you. And, I've written two articles for the Record in my life, and both of them were about having a digital sabbatical. And increasingly, I think that this is something that is something we can bring to the community as a way of dealing with noise, digital noise.
We've got a question that's come in, Jared. I think it's a good one, sort of on topic, what we're talking about. What strategy can we use to convince our young people to engage on platforms positively sharing their faith? Because most often they're missing out on this. I think that goes to, I guess, the missional element as an individual, and perhaps encouraging people to see the digital space as a mission field. And how do we encourage them, or how do we empower them? Adventist Media did some years ago a study on, sharing your faith, and people were keen to share their faith, but didn't know how, didn't know where to start, were afraid maybe of rejection, or there was a bunch of reasons and challenges that were identified for that. It was interesting point of reflection for us today.
Yeah, around the mid 2000s, as new media was turning into social media, some research was done. And whenever I'm at youth events and I'm speaking or doing training sessions, I bring up what is called the 1% rule. And the research at the time said that the 1% of people who create the content that other people engage with get 90% of the opportunities. That's a huge, difference when you look at the numbers. And to drill into this a bit deeper, to answer the question, is if you want your young people to be engaging digitally in evangelism, get them to be creating content for other people on topics, and present it online through blogs, through videos, through presenting their faith. And most importantly, the most important thing that you can ever do is your testimony. Testimonies are powerful. Human stories with a kingdom message is one of the things that I think have the most powerful way to cut through the noise and to connect with somebody else. So, get your youth being the 1%. It's statistically around 4% now, as more people create content, actually creating content that is designed for other people to have a look at their faith, have a look at their story, etc. Get them
stealing some of our thunder for Digital Discipleship Conference.
Well,
which is coming up soon.
But there's I'm actually really excited about digital discipleship. We've got people attending from the US, from out of the division, from Southeast Asia. Indonesia's sending a whole heap of pastors down to be trained in digital discipleship. I'm really looking forward to engaging with the people there. We've got some really good sessions, and I'm still researching my topic on the number one thing going forward into the AI age that people need to know for digital discipleship.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to hear your presentation. It's been really awesome having you on today. For people who have just jumped on last minute to this conversation, can you just give us a quick recap of when this is happening and what it is? I know we've got the link, but
it's happening next month in March on the 14th. You can go, it's 14th to the 16th, so it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We've got speakers, we've got training sessions. We've actually got the Adventist Media crew setting up to do training on how to film people's testimonies, and that'll be a really good hands-on. We've got a room separate for them so people could go in and do training sessions with that. 14th to the 16th of March.
Awesome. Cool. Great. Thanks so much, Jared. I think we're all going to be there. So if anyone would like to come along, it's an awesome time. I've been there the last few years, and so was Jared's stack here. But thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jared squared.
Jared squared. We did something new at Record this week, Zanita. Speaking of technology, we started a WhatsApp broadcast channel. So we know that a lot of our Pacific Island people, speaking of being in digital spaces where people are, we know a lot of you in the Pacific are using WhatsApp frequently. So we started a WhatsApp channel, and we'd love you to find and follow Adventist Record to get all your daily updates, to get your news and some views and all things Adventist Church in the South Pacific. So that's another good platform that you can follow to stay in touch. Until next week, God bless and have a great time. We'll see you then.